let's get this thing started. We're excited today to have our webinar. We've got a special guest here, Tim Goering with Negotiation Mastery. As always, with my co-host here, Jim Brown. We're doing this bi-weekly webinar, and we're trying to bring value to agents. You know, a little bit of background about myself. Agent here in the trenches with you all. Been doing this for over 20 years. Love the real estate business. And then a little over 2 years ago, I launched a real estate platform called Real Trade, which is an online marketplace and social media platform for real estate. And love hosting with these webinars with one of our great vendors on the platform, Jim, with New Path Title, and we always have some great special guests. We're excited here to have Tim Goering on today. But Jim, why don't you give a quick background about your awesome companies? I mean, one of the quintessential entrepreneurs here in West Palm Beach. Not only give a little background, Jim, of what you do and who you are.
We got the title company, New Path Title, and the law firm, James Brown Law. And then we have a technology company, Title Leap. I've doubled down on realtors because I think that's the future of the real estate world. And I'm a huge supporter of anything that sharpens the edge of the real estate industry. And I think Tim's a great asset in that regard. And having the tools to negotiate effectively is an unfair advantage. It's like bringing a gun to a knife fight, and I'm all about iron sharpens iron, giving you guys the tools. We elevate the profession together, and yeah, this is what I want to make my life career. And so as far as administrative, right? So we're going to get Tim online. He'll talk for about 30 minutes. And then afterwards, we can have a question and answer. You guys, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. We'll answer that. And we have a small group, so we can answer them along the way. And text me 24/7 for two things. If I can give you transactional support on any issues you might be having and future topics you want to talk about in the podcast. I want to bring relevant content to you guys. That's Ryan and my goal. And if you guys text me your issues, I can guarantee you that other agents are having the same issues. We can make content out of it. It just elevates the whole profession across the board. Awesome. If you can, and Felipe, if you can turn on your camera, it's great to see the facial expressions if you can. If not, no worries. We got a small group, and seeing people react to we're not in person, but seeing people react online is a great tool for the people that are speaking.
Great. So without further ado, Tim, why don't you take it away here with Negotiation Mastery? Give the listeners a little bit of background about yourself. Remember, this is being recorded, so this is going to live on as evergreen content as well. So we are recording it. And let's get started. You can share your screen and give a little bit about yourself and get into this. What we need to know to be better negotiators in real estate. Totally relevant topic.
Yeah, let me apologize up front because my intent was to make this very interactive. So I'm going to need Jeff and Jim and Ryan. I'm going to need you all to chime in and unmute as often as possible and dig in with me. Otherwise, it's going to turn into a lecture. But I'll give you just a little bit of background on me. Graduated from the Naval Academy in 1989. Went on to fly all kinds of different airplanes in the Marine Corps, mostly insertion and extraction and search and rescue stuff. And then I had daughters, and that changes everything, right? And once you have daughters, I went in right into selling. I sold coronary heart stents at first, and then moved promptly over to Wall Street in about 2000. Perfect time to join Wall Street because the whole market was tanking. So everybody else was playing defense, and I didn't have any clients. So I got to move forward abruptly. That led me, I had a pretty successful career selling both high-end hedge funds and regular wealth management, and ultimately became a bank president. Just in time for 2008 to occur, right? So the good news was we didn't have any bad loans because we didn't have any loans yet. We were a brand new federally chartered bank, and we were on fire because nobody else was doing anything. My last corporate job was on the Bank of New York Mellon on the wealth management side. I ran the state of Florida, and for the last 10 years, this is all I do. I train professionals on sales and leadership and communication and negotiations, which is one of my favorite topics. And I'll just share my screen to kind of give you an idea of the good news is, in a half an hour, I'm not going to teach you to be a master negotiator. That's not the goal, right? The goal is to make you thirsty enough to talk to Ryan and I about the program that we're trying to launch. I've already running the program, but the dream is to run it just for realtors. And it's called Negotiation Mastery. And it's based on this book that was written by Clint Babcock. which is called Negotiating from the Inside Out. So the good news is everything I'm covering today, you can buy in this book, and it's available on Amazon.com right now. So if you don't know where Amazon is, then we can't help you. You'll have to get at least that far on your own. It's like a $15 book. So here's why I don't mind giving that away. People are always like, Tim, how can you teach a course on negotiation mastery over 6 weeks of 6 90-minute sessions when everything's in the book? And here's the reason. Information and education will only take you so far. Without application and then modification of that, making it your own, practicing this stuff, you're never going to see the transformation or the domination that you're looking for. So that's kind of what it's all about. And so that's the book that we'll be referencing. But I want to start off with some questions. And if you guys interact, great, then I'll use it. If not, I'll just turn this into a lecture. But I hate to do that. So, maybe I'll start off by saying, hey, what other negotiation training have you all had, or great books have you read on the topic?
I've read that the Voss book, Never Split the Difference, which was great. He was
Fantastic.
He was a negotiation expert, right, with the FBI, right? And he was
hostage negotiator. Chris Voss, fantastic book. If you haven't read it, my favorite part is tactical empathy, right? Which is empathizing with the person you're negotiating with to get inside their head. Fantastic book. Mm-hmm. How about anybody else? Anybody else read any good books on it, or even better, take a course on it?
3 years of law. Well, 3 years of law school, and the thing that they never taught us was negotiation, and I feel at a loss because that's just a skill I've had to develop over the years, and I don't feel like I'm a great outcome achiever, but I'm not a great negotiator to get to the outcome. So I'd love to have tools to do that.
Awesome. I love that they don't teach it in law school. By the way, they should teach this in every school. They should probably, in my opinion, they should teach this in high school, along with budgeting and all kinds of other stuff that they don't teach. However, they don't, which is a huge advantage. And, let's make this germane to real estate. Right? You're hiring a broker to represent you to sell what could possibly be your single biggest asset. Or you're hiring a broker to find some purchase for you. And you're counting on that person to negotiate on your behalf. So it's probably even more important. I would argue for attorneys and for brokers of any sort. I don't care if you're selling yachts or whatever it is. You need to be able to negotiate on behalf of your client. And then that can be a problem. So what are some challenges? Give me some challenges. Anybody who has a challenge with negotiation, I'll make sure I try to work that in the next 20, 30 minutes.
I have a challenge here. Is obviously it is relevant right now with real estate. Obviously, it's a seller's market still here in South Florida. Inventory is very tight, and understanding some strategies that we can do to negotiate, dealing with the competitive offers. I mean, it's crazy. I just made an offer on a property. There was 4 other offers, on it, and your client's looking at you like, hey, what do we do to try and negotiate us a good deal, but still get the house, right? I mean, that's something that's pretty relevant right now. And then just I guess negotiations too. Just what are some common misconceptions, right, about negotiation, and some truth behind them, right, that could help everybody be a better negotiator, and regardless of their experience level, take away some good nuggets, right, that we could have in the webinar.
There you go. All right. Well, those are all great challenges. I'll cover all those, I promise. Go ahead, Jim.
I'd love to know about different personality types. Like, how do you read the person on the other side of the table and figure out what tools to draw upon, and then give us the tools? Like, how do you read the person and then figure out what tools? Because what I've learned in 20 years of private practice and 40 years of doing this type of work is you can come up with all the facts you want sometimes, and I think that should sway anyone, but a lot of times there's just other things you can use that are more subtle, or that are just different tactics for making that person see it your way without just dropping a bunch of facts on the table, because facts don't resonate with some people. Yeah. How do you read them, and then how do you draw upon the tools to use it for that personality type?
Jim, that is such a great challenge. That's why it's a 6-week course. Okay. My intent today is to overwhelm you. You probably heard the old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I don't look as my job is to make you drink. My job today is to make you thirsty. I will hopefully I will create an itch that you will want to scratch. I will create a scenario where you realize, wow, there are 12 tactics that I can use when I'm negotiating. There are 7 big mistakes that I could make. There are 8 sources of leverage that I didn't know I had. And there's a 3-step concession plan that if I prepare for ahead of time, I'll be way ahead of the competition. And I'll explain those so you'll know they exist in that great book. But then at the end of the day, it's going to be up to you to either read the book and try and figure it out yourself, or to join us. As soon as we have 5 or 6 people, we'll start our next session. And the idea is we just kind of rotate them. Anytime I have 6 people ready to go, we pick a time and a date, 90 minutes a week for 6 weeks, and then we start over. So let me start with a tough question. What's the difference between selling and negotiating?
Was that 90 minutes a day for 6 weeks or 90 minutes? What was the frequency?
90 minutes at a time. So one session a week for 6 weeks.
So one session a week for 6 weeks. Got it. Sorry,
that's not right. That'll kill you. 90 minutes a day. I don't know if I get any professionals that kind of. And that, by the way, isn't that the great news? People say, I don't have the time for that. What? You don't have the time to learn how to negotiate on something that, and by the way, it's easy to do the math on it. Just ask yourself, how much did you leave on the table when you lost your last deal? Or how much did you compromise when you cut your price? Because when they struggled on purpose, you gave in. And just, I guarantee you.
I mean, as an agent negotiating with our clients, our commission, right? I mean, that's a big one. It's always a negotiation every time.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of those things you guys are going to have to negotiate, right? You might have to negotiate your commission with your client before you even start negotiating broker to broker.
That's true.
Crazy.
I have a 7-year-old too. I'm always negotiating with that.
I was going to bring that up. You got to negotiate with your kids. If you're married, you got to negotiate with your wife on the way in and then possibly on the way out 70% of the time.
But if you take that time invested and the amount of money, so if you have to negotiate a commission and you divide the duration of the discussion by the compromise in the commission, the dollar value is staggering.
Yeah. Call that the impact ratio, Jim. The numerator has got to be larger than the denominator. In other words, you'll pay me $1,500 all day long to fix $1 million problem, but the opposite's not true. So let's jump right into it. What's the difference between selling and negotiating? I hate to make it hard right out the gates, but let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you're negotiating, right, you're looking for a specific outcome, of a target that you want to achieve, right, on a price or concession or something, right? Selling, I always see it as like you're trying to create urgency, trying to, paint a big picture, get the people emotionally excited, all those kind of things.
But that sounds like the same thing.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it, Jim?
Similar.
But again, this is good news. The good news is most people can't articulate the difference between selling and negotiating. So selling, in my mind, is you've got a price and you've got terms and they buy it, right? You're trying to sell it at your price and your terms. Negotiations is what happens when they don't agree with your price and terms and they start asking you to concede a little bit on those, or you do the same thing, right? And that's the funny thing with negotiations is some people do it for fun, myself included, right? I grew up in a family where my dad was a master negotiator. He was the director for the MX missile project for the Air Force and negotiated with contractors in the civilian world forever. So eating dinner at my house was negotiation practice. Right? And that's the mentality is I'm going to have to negotiate. Now, if you're going to have to negotiate, the environment that you do it in, here's a rookie mistake. I see this one all the time, is that people will try to negotiate by text or email. Now, I'm a sales coach for a living, right? So it's not uncommon at all for me to get an email from a client that says, oh, Tim, your price is a little high. If you can just come down a little bit, we'll be ready to do this. And I email them right back and I say, one of the things I'll teach your team, should you choose to hire me, is never negotiate by email. Why do you think I do that? And I end it with a question, right? Because it puts the ball in their court. It gets them talking. So I would say this is the continuum if you're looking at my screen right now. Worst case scenario is text. Second worst is email. If you can do it voice to voice on the phone, that's a little bit better. If you can do it via Zoom, it's a little bit better. And in person is the best of all. And the reason is I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at tone and pace and body language and the words that they use. And then to Jim's perception, right? Person by person, it's going to be different. So I'm a huge believer in using all the leverage against me. Now, one of the things I coach people to is I use the Sandler selling system. And if you're familiar with the Sandler selling system, it's one big preemptive strike on selling and negotiation, right? So I'm not going to go into that too deep today. However, if you've got a good relationship with somebody, you've got an advantage. If you can align expectations right in the beginning, you've got an advantage. Instead of telling, if you discover with them what their challenges are and how long they've been thinking about it and what they tried already, you have a distinct advantage over the competition. If you do a preemptive strike on the budget situation, in other words, you talk about the time and the money and the effort that they're going to have to invest to work with you, you've got a distinct advantage. If you know who the other decision makers are and what the decision-making timeline is, you have a huge advantage. And if you leave all this for the negotiation, this is all vulnerability. When you finally, too, get to differentiate yourself, and we say don't differentiate yourself until you've got all that other stuff done. And even after they say yes, I know that buyer's remorse is real. Anybody ever sold a deal and then they backed out? It happens. Yeah. Anybody ever get a yes and then the competition comes in and undercuts you? Well, that never happens to Ryan and Jim and I. However, it happens to everybody else. Right? No, I'm kidding, of course, right? If you don't know my personality. And then I want to align expectations with regard to what happens next. So here are those 8 sources of leverage that I mentioned. And I'm gonna give these to you one at a time, but let me put it in question format. Whoever's in the biggest hurry with regard to time, do they have the leverage or are they more vulnerable?
More vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
Yeah. Right? You're more vulnerable if you're short on time. Now that can turn in, by the way, it can go the opposite direction. And we address that in the course as well. Whoever believes they're on the side of righteousness and good, in other words, they're not lying, they're not cheating, they're not stealing, they have an advantage. That's leverage. What I want to do is I want to get them to believe with my questions, with my sincerity, with my listening tactics, that I have their best interests at heart. Because that gives me leverage when we start negotiating later. The next one is need. How do I get them to admit they need me? I can should all over them. That's HR legal, by the way, because I said should. If I said I was going to watch Netflix tonight, you would say, oh, you know what you should watch? If I said I'm going to go buy a big house in Palm Beach, you'd say, oh, you know where you should look? You know who you should work with? Right? We can't wait as human beings to should all over people. Right? The single strongest human instinct is to impart information. And the second single strongest is to resist it. So I need to get them to admit that they need what I've got. And I'm going to do that systematically with my system. How does emotion come into it? Whoever's the most emotional has the most leverage or vulnerability?
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability. Yeah. Right? I want to check my emotions at the door. Before I start, I need to know. I'm in sales. I'm a sales professional. If you became a sales professional to get your needs met, you've chosen the wrong profession, right? So I wish you luck in that. It's not going to be good all the time. Matter of fact, you
should say that. You should let that resonate. If you chose sales to get your needs met, you chose the wrong profession.
Yeah, there's a huge reward at the end, monetarily and freedom-wise, if you're in sales. However, the rejection that you've got to get on a daily basis is why they pay you so much. Most people can't do what salespeople do every single day. Now, building the relationship is huge. Listening, there's so much that goes into building the relationship. And Jim, I'm going to touch on that just a little bit with regard to the way people communicate. But the reality is, if you don't have a good relationship, when you come to the negotiations phase, you're already got a vulnerable position. The next one is understanding. I want them to understand how much they need me in the sale. I remember that old, some of you are old enough to remember the Cheap Trick song, right? I want you to want me. I don't want you to like me. I want you to want me to come back because it's good for you. That's that Whiffam rule. What's in it for me? Right? The only way the clients are going to understand that they benefit way more than you do when they're using your services is if you properly ask the right questions. And if you don't understand why, going to that Simon Sinek thing, why do they want this house? Why is their timeline so short? Why is that their ceiling for their price? You know, why is it that they want it in that neighborhood? If you don't know their why, if you don't understand them, when it comes time to negotiate, they're going to use that against you when you could have had that as a source of leverage. So take time to ask the questions first. The one of the big things I love to talk about in sales is the illusion of knowing. That's where I think I know what you want because I've seen it so many times. I want to transfer the illusion of knowing. I want them to have some ownership in it. So I'm going to ask 9 directionally relevant questions on purpose. Like, hey, what are you looking for? Right? Be more specific. Well, help me understand why you're looking for that. Gosh, how long you been looking? Wow, what have you tried already? Why do you think that didn't work? What are the consequences if you don't find what you're looking for? Man, how's your wife going to feel about that? All right, so from your perspective, what do we do next? Now, I just rattled off those 9 questions like I've done this before because I want to transfer the ownership. When they own the idea that they've been looking for a long time and couldn't find it, and the last broker didn't do his job, and their wife's going to kill them if they don't figure this out, when they own that, I have leverage. And the only way I'm going to get them to tell me that story is 2 parts. I got to ask the question, and then I got to zip it and listen to the answer. That's the hard part for me, that second part. So I will entertain coaching on that. All right. So the last one on this page is skill, and that comes with practice. The good news is, we already discussed this, most people don't read the book. Most people don't engage with another professional to get better at it. So you've got a distinct advantage if you decide to do that. So Ryan, you asked for some myth busting. Let me give you some myths. It's all about money. Why is that a myth?
A lot of emotions involved sometimes, and egos and a lot of other things at play.
I would argue it is never all about the money in any situation. Right? If you want to hire an artist, I will do it cheaper. You want a cheaper roof construction guy? Get me the best offer. I'll do it better. But, you know, all the other stuff that you might want, you know, for it to be legal and all that, you know, I'm not going to do all that, right? Good, fast, and cheap. Pick 2. I know I'm going putting a lot of stuff out there, but that's the idea, right? Is to make you realize what you can get. Negotiations and concessions mean you need to give something up. When you're negotiating, does that mean you definitely are going to have to concede? No. But if you're not prepared to negotiate, then you're definitely going to wind up with a concession or a beating. I don't know which, but it's definitely one of them is coming your way. So just because we're talking about negotiations doesn't mean you're going to have to make concessions. Ooh, I love this one because everybody says this. The person who talks first loses.
Yep.
Why do I want to talk first?
I mean, you can drive the narrative.
Ooh, that's it, Ryan.
Yeah, I think you set the tone.
Yeah, I'm going to set the tone. And I always want to talk first. I'm going to say, hey, I appreciate you inviting me in. You know, how much time do you have today? I'm touching that time because it's leverage, right? You probably have some ideas exactly what you're looking for, and I've got some suggestions for you. And by the way, if you don't like my suggestions, no thank you's okay, right? And if you ask me for something I can't do, I'm just going to push back on you and say I can't do that rather than lead you down a path. But with any luck, we'll figure this out and we'll move forward together. Does that sound like a plan? Now, I talk first, but then I do the you start technique, and this is where I shut up. All right, so what do you have in mind? And I'm prepared to ask those next 9 questions, but I'm going to get them talking because when they're talking, I'm winning. We call that the you start technique. I'll demonstrate it right now. Even though I just explained it to you, watch this. It'll still work. You guys remember those old knock knock jokes? You know, knock knock, who's there? Somebody start one for me. Jim, you nodded your head.
Knock, knock.
See, it worked. I just told you I was going to do the you start technique. And this is because in 3rd grade, your teacher taught you to answer the question. So when I ask the question the right way, they'll always start. So when I say you probably have some ideas what you're looking for, so rather than me tell you what the market looks like, let's start with that. Then we'll go to me, right? So I do a preemptive strike on the talk first thing, and it works every single time. Can anybody else think of a myth we need to bust?
A myth we need to bust.
I mean, in negotiation, I love the person. You always hear that who first talk loses, but do you always need to, if you get something, do you always need to give something? Right.
Ooh, I'm going to go with yes. You should as a rule. We
Yeah.
call that the IOU, and you're going to see that in my 3-step concession plan. If you're going to make a concession, it's okay to ask for something in return. The best time that ever happened to me, Ryan, I quoted a guy $5,000 for a morning of training for his entire team, and he asked me if I could do it for $4,000. And I said, gosh, I'd like to. Can I be honest with you about why I can't do that? And he said, sure. And I said, well, because you own a Gulfstream and I don't. And he said, all right, well, that's fair. He goes, how about I fly you on that Gulfstream to the Texas A&M game this weekend, and we stand on the sidelines behind Jimbo Fisher? To which I replied, we're close. Because that's how I trained myself. Now, we were there, by the way, okay, to drive down to Palm Beach Airport and then jump on a jet and fly to the game. Man, we were there. But because I was prepared to negotiate, I said, we're close. And he threw in a Kentucky basketball game sitting behind Calipari during basketball season. And then I conceded the $1,000. But for the $1,000, look what I got.
I love it.
You did? You gave up the full grand?
I did. Yeah, because I wanted to jump on that jet because then my fiance would think I was cool. Come on, man. I'm not stupid.
I built Calipari's house back in the day a million years ago when he first started getting it big.
Well, he's done well. So the house must have been the inspiration, Jim. You can take a little bit of credit for that, probably. So I'm a big believer. You can't negotiate with Donald Trump the way you can negotiate with your grandmother at the kitchen table. Now, I'm assuming your grandmother doesn't have the same fears as Donald Trump. So I'm a big believer in negotiating by style. And so I'm assuming you don't know anything at all about DISC, but I can tell you this. A fast-paced, task-oriented person does not negotiate the same as a slower-paced, consensus-oriented person. So once you listen to what they talk about, if this person's fear is losing control, and this one's fear is being liked, and this one's fear is disappointing somebody in the family, and this one's fear is being wrong, not having all the facts, it's a whole different negotiation. So
that's what I was talking about earlier.
Yes, sir. And it's important.
Yeah.
There's an entire chapter in the book. There's an entire session in the curriculum where all we will talk about is negotiating by style. Some people will need a gentle nudge. Some people will think of a gentle nudge as a personal affront, as a usurping of their control. Some people will say, send me something, or I want to think it over, when they really mean no, thank you. Some people will never say that. They'll just say no, thank you. Some people, when they say, I want to think it over, what they mean is I'm going to run this by my attorney and my accountant, my title guy, and my best friend next door. And some people mean I'm going to do a line down the middle of the table. And I'm going to analyze this 6 ways to Sunday. So you can't handle, I want to think it over the same way for each style. And that can become a problem. So let me go into the 7 biggest mistakes people make when they're negotiating, because this is fun. Oh, I gave them all away. What's the first one, do you think? What's the single biggest mistake that people make when they're negotiating?
Throwing their position out too early?
Yeah. That could be a big mistake for sure, yeah.
But doesn't that start the narrative, though? Doesn't that drive the tone right off the bat?
I think that there's a lot of, from every mistake, there's something to learn, right? So if I'm going to do something, I want to do it intentionally, not as a knee-jerk reaction.
I would say listening to the other side, right? Being very clear, and listening to them of what their, goals are too.
I think that's a huge mistake that people make as well. Here's the biggest one, though.
Listening is a bit, listening to the other side's needs right off the bat is a big, I just want to make sure I'm clear. You're saying listening to the other side's mistakes right off the bat is a big mistake.
I think he said not listening.
Not listening. Okay. Sorry.
Not listening in the beginning. And if you're not asking good questions, I think of myself as a spy. I was a Marine intel officer, but I did it at such a low level that it really was the guy who got to keep the maps, right? When you're a spy, your job is to get information. And then later on, you put it on the cork board and you make all the red yarn, connect the dots, right? The biggest mistake most people make, though, is they fail to realize that some people Study negotiations for fun. Chris Voss, Tim Goring, right? Anybody who's ever been through a divorce, right? Anybody who's ever dealt with a really high caliber attorney. Some people negotiate for a living and they learn it by experience. But if you're negotiating against somebody that knows what they're doing, you're in big trouble. You are in big, big trouble. And, I think of it as like that Serengeti myth or not myth, but story. Every day you wake up on the Serengeti and you're either the gazelle or you're the lion. You're either on the menu or you got a plan to get some dinner. Right? And the reality is it's dangerous if you're negotiating against somebody that knows what they're doing. So number 2 is weak pre-negotiating positioning. So Ryan, that hits your point. If you do some power listening up front, if you align expectations, if you make it okay for them to push back, you're in a stronger position. This one you hit as well, right? You need to understand what you are willing to concede. What's your high number? What's the number you want? What's the number you'll accept? What else can you concede besides money?
Yep.
Maybe it's introductions. Maybe it's future business. And by the way, they'll use that against you. I'll show you that in a minute. Talking too much. I'm trying to demonstrate that today, but that's only because we don't have a big group, right? So if you talk too much, you could be in a weak position. Losing control of your emotions. My best example of this is my ex-wife and I went to buy 2 sofas in High Point, North Carolina, before we moved to Hawaii when I was in the Marine Corps. And I could afford the second one just barely. But when they tacked on the delivery charge and the taxes, we were out of the range. So I had to tell the guy, look, I don't think we can do it. And my ex-wife cried. What do you think the guy did when she cried?
Reduce the price.
He caved.
Conceded. Yeah.
And I'm like, you got to do that on purpose. Can you do that on command, or was that real? It was totally real. She was just, she was upset because we weren't going to do the deal. But whoever's in least control of their emotions is in big trouble. We discuss that as leverage or vulnerability. Entering unprepared, right? Thinking about the concessions ahead of time, knowing what their disc style is, how that other broker is going to come at you are all key important things. And the last one is failing to understand that money isn't everything. It's never everything. There's always something else. If you get it cheaper, but the house is a piece of crap, you're not going to be okay just because you got it cheaper. If you get it cheaper and then you find out that the broker was dishonest with you, or that there were other houses that he didn't show you, you're going to be upset and you're never going to refer business. There's always something else going on besides just money. So let's talk about the other side of this, and then I'll get on to the concession side, which is what are those 12 tactics? Now, this is a lot, and all I'm giving you is the easy stuff. So I'm going to buzzsaw through these really quick because I don't want to leave you without the 3-step concession plan. But the first one is called the flinch. I do the flinch out of habit now. The first time I ever used the flinch, it was an accident. I was negotiating for my first job in West Palm Beach, and the guy I was negotiating with said, okay, Tim, we're thinking about starting you between 120 and 150. And I was thinking, if I can get 120, it's going to be a miracle. This is awesome. So I went like this. Whew. And he misread me, and he said, okay, 150. I'm like, look at me. I'm a master negotiator. I'm a 30-year-old
I
king.
know, just the disgusted look like, God, no. I know, the flinch. I like it.
You do the struggle face every single time, no matter what they say. Well, we probably could let this house go for just under $1 million. And you got to go, that's the flinch, which is different than emotional outburst, right? But you can use it against somebody and it can be used against you. But you can use an emotional outburst and a flinch simultaneously. Like, whoa, right? Even though your answer is, all right, we're close. By the way, if somebody says to me a number and it's close or it's higher than I expected, I'm always I program myself, no matter what they say, Tim. If they're close, say we're close. If you're not close, say we're not even close. Now I can think about what else I'm going to say. Right? That's the kind of stuff we're going to practice in the 6 weeks that we do together. Mm-hmm. Now, the second one is easy. I should expect them to say, your competition is cheaper, or I can get this for less somewhere else. Right? No matter what they say, I want to be ready with my response. objection handling 101. So I might say, I'm going to meet them emotionally. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that. Right. Or, wow, you know what? I hear that all the time. I can get this cheaper somewhere else. And sometimes that's the case. I'm not the cheapest. Why do you think that is? I call that the soften, answer, in reverse. Right. I just reversed it by asking a question, which is, why do you think that is? And now they will brainstorm why I'm more expensive. So instead of justifying it or convincing them or educating or explaining, I just let them have it. Yes,
I love that.
I am more expensive. Why do you think that is? What do you think the other guys are leaving out? Why do you think they're willing to concede? These are all questions, and you got to deliver it. You got to struggle when you deliver it. You can't say, why do you think that is? Right. So tone matters.
Yep.
The next
I
one is
love that. That's gold right there.
Yeah.
well, I'm gonna give you
Especially
some more goals.
negotiating your commission, guys. Like, I'm just saying, as an agent perspective, it's crazy, especially right now with things
Yeah.
tight, a lot of competition. Like, it's the first place these sellers are going for when you want to list with them right now. It's like they want to, you know,
a lot of folks will cut their commission. Why do you think they're willing to cut their commission? And then whatever they say, right? Like, oh, I don't know, because they don't have any other deals. You can say, exactly, you're right. Right. And now I don't need to be the hero of the story. I don't need to be the know-it-all. If they say, well, because you think you're better than everybody else, I know what I'm going to do there. I'm going to be like, I do, but let me give you a metaphor, right? The cheapest childcare is probably on Craigslist, but people don't go to Craigslist for childcare. Why not? And now they'll tell me prices and everything, right? The cheapest heart surgery is probably not in this country, but people just don't go flying down to South America for heart surgery on a whim. Why don't they do that? And then they will tell me why price isn't the only thing. But you've got to be innocent.
This is invaluable. This is great.
I know, this is incredible, Tim. Let's keep going.
Just wait. We're only on number 3. All right. So lower or higher authority, I should expect them to say, let me check this out with my wife. Let me run this by my attorney. Right. And so I need to know what I'm going to say. Absolutely, you should do that. What if he hates it? Right. Which is forcing them to say, I wear the pants in the family, or I don't wear the pants in the family. By the way, I'm just giving you the shortcut version. I got 5 on every one of these because this is what we will practice. Good cop, bad cop. I don't think my wife's going to like that price. I don't think my wife's going to like this school district, whatever it is. Okay. Well, it doesn't sound to me like there's any set of circumstances under which you'd ever consider buying this house then. And now they will explain to you the set of circumstances under which they would consider. This was just their move that they used against you because they were good or they were lucky. Everything's a move. You're either the prime mover or they're being moved against you. I want to know that I'm on the right side. The hot potato. This is where they make your problems or their problems your problems. Well, I really got to get in there by September, or this, that, or the other thing happens. The kids won't get into school. Okay. That sounds hard. But that is your problem, not mine. Now, I don't want to say it like that, but I want to understand, like, all right, well, it doesn't sound like this is a deal. When you're willing to walk away, they will insist you stay. That's the cheap trick I explained earlier. Right? You've got to develop that walk away presence. When they sense that you're willing to walk away, when they sense you're willing to walk away from the deal, they will argue for you to stay. Emotional outburst we kind of covered, and it can be used against you or to your benefit. The fait accompli, right, is different than this is kind of where they do the assumptive sale on you. All right, well, you are going to do the inspection for free, right? Or you are going to lower your commission on your end, correct? I need to be ready for them to use that against me. Otherwise, I'll fold. And the good news is there's a whole bunch of amateurs out there, they're amateur negotiators that'll fold on any of these tactics. So feel free to use this against people. Just don't let them use it against you.
Yep.
Right. Another one is called best and final offer. Well, this is the best I can do. Right? You need to know what you're going to do when they do that. And that's where that walkaway presence is going to be. All right, well, darn it. Doesn't sound to me like there's any set of circumstances under which we're going to get this deal done today. And if they think you're walking away, everybody's done this stuff, or they've seen it done to them. However, when it becomes intentional instead of intuitive, that's when you win. Stonewalling is the same thing as ghosting. That's the old way of saying ghosting. They tell you, okay, you know what? Let me think about this. I'll get back to you by Friday. And then it becomes, where'd who go? And they're in witness protection. They don't answer your calls because they went with the competition. You showed them everything and they went with cheaper. Escalation is when the buyers start telling, they make you promises like, oh, I'm going to buy 5 houses in the next year. Or, you know what, I'm one of those guys, I know everybody in town. I'm going to be introducing you as my main broker from now on. And they're using that, so you'll get all excited and cut your commission and get your little tiny commission, and then that never happens.
I've used it. I've
Okay,
had that
so-
used on
wait,
me.
wait, wait, wait.
I've had it.
gotta-
That's what happens. Let me just say, like literally
we
happens.
gotta-
Cut your
we gotta
commission. Like, oh,
unpack
we're going to
that.
get you the next deal. Like, we got other deals coming, and guess what happens on the next deal? They go to cut your commission and get on the next deal. It's like,
I
oh,
thought I was making that up. I thought it was a hypothetical. I didn't realize it actually
no,
happened.
it's true, especially with
No,
investors.
that's-
Especially
I'm
with
being
investors.
sarcastic, dude. It happens to everyone.
I know.
Right? So does nibbling.
You got number 2, the competition is cheaper, and escalation. I'm going to give you all kinds of those two. Unpacking those 2 bags would be invaluable for agents.
I know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Jim. You're dead on, right? And nibbling is just where they try to get little concessions from you all along the way, and it winds up piling up.
Like
You
a
know, it
chisel.
starts,
Like it's like a
cut your
chisel.
commission.
Yeah.
And then it starts, can we do it quicker? And then can you get the other guy to cut his commission? And then can you cut me a break on the title work? And oh, you must know a mortgage guy. And they just keep on nibbling and nibbling and nibbling and nibbling. Right. And if you don't set boundaries, you'll be the victim. Changing the rules is when you get all the way to the final line, and maybe this isn't applying in well, maybe it does in real estate, right? You get all the way negotiated, and they're like, okay, all I got to do is get my mortgage approved from my bank with my 600 credit score, and we are off to the races. And then all of a sudden, the rules have changed because you didn't ask all those questions in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we're running short on time here, so I'm gonna hit the 3-step concession plan, just because there is a point in every negotiation where you may have to give a little. And I want to prepare for that mentally and emotionally ahead of time. So here's step 1. And by the way, step 1 and step 2 in the book, I reverse. Step 1 is acknowledge, validate, reassure, ask some questions, right? Like, okay, I can understand, or I think I understand where we are, you know. So now the reason I do this one second is because the second one is struggle and redirect. So I struggle first. I call mine SEC negotiations. So as soon as you say the price, I'm going to be like, I just don't know if we can do that, because some people will fold right there. Yep. When I go to the store, my kids hate it when I do this, but I'm like, I don't suppose you got a veteran discount. And if they say no, I make this face like, oh, like you don't care about veterans here, right? And then they'll come up with a manager discount or something to give me. You'd be surprised how many times I'll get a discount just because I'm willing to struggle after I ask. But then I use feel, felt, found. I can't imagine how you must feel. And by the way, you're not alone. People ask me for this kind of concession all the time. But what I found is, in spite of the fact, they'll still move forward, and then I ask them a question. So again, that's a lot there. I'll format that for you, but I'm going to start with acknowledge, hey, what you just asked me is reasonable. However, I don't think I can do it. That's me struggling. And step 3 seems like, well, Ryan hit it earlier, is important. If I'm ever going to concede, I'm going to ask for something in return. All right, let's say I did that. Let's say I came down a little bit on the price. What do you got for me?
Yep.
Right. And there's always something like, okay, you know what? We'll leave all that pool furniture there. Okay. You know, it has to be something though. And if you ask, you'll always get something. If you don't ask, you'll never get.
I tell you, one of the best guys is these life insurance guys, right? Like, you know, they ask for 5 referrals, you know, they get to know you, they warm up. Like if you're going to give any kind of concession on your commission, be like, you know, 5 referrals. You know, I'll do that.
Something.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that's really tough about real estate is you're actually having a dual negotiation going on simultaneously.
Yeah.
Because as an agent, you're talking to the other agent, but simultaneously in your head, you have to start prepping the dialogue for how you present this to your client. And then your client is another negotiation.
Yep.
Yep.
So here's
And
some
you got to employ the same tactics you know, A against the buyer's agent if you're a seller's agent, and A and B against your seller when you get the resolve with the buyer's agent. Like
No doubt about it.
juggling
And
chainsaws.
and oftentimes you won't even know you're in a negotiation with a really good negotiator. Right. I'm joking and laughing and trying to be warm and fuzzy the entire time, but trust me, I got all 12 of these in my back pocket and I'm ready to rock and roll. So here's the rules. Have a concession plan. If you go in without a concession plan, you're looking for a win-lose situation. You're being competitive about your negotiations. They're going to see through that, and some people aren't going to do business with you. Right? If you're going to concede, concede slowly. Don't give up at the first flinch. Don't give up at the first hot potato. Don't give up when they escalate. Don't give up when they do all those tactics against you. Stay in the game. You got at least 3. You got to struggle on purpose. For some people, this is hard. Vulnerability is the ultimate expression of self-esteem. There is a difference between being vulnerable and being submissive. I'm not telling you to roll over. I'm telling you that if you express vulnerability, right? Don't hit me. First shot's free. One inspires a lot more confidence. All right. And then the last one is that IOU. Right? I'm a huge believer that there's always something that you can get. So with that, let me open it up to questions. The best way to get a hold of me, by the way, is LinkedIn. Tim Goering. There are 2 Tim Goerings on LinkedIn. The other guy's out in Seattle. And
On Real Trade too, Tim.
Oh,
I
the
just
number one way is Real Trade.
I just
right?
shared your profile on in the chat too. It's got your phone number and email there as well.
And the spirit of Real Trade is professionals working together for mutual benefit. And by the way, in good times, that's important. In tough times, when the competition is everywhere, it's crucial. So I would argue that the affinity that Real Trade has created, right, having a group of people that are in it with you is as important, if not more important, than being able to negotiate, knowing that most people never train themselves on negotiation.
And you touch this in the presentation, Tim, is like, you know, of having some kind of personal connection, right? Of building rapport with the other person that you're negotiating with. And as an agent, this is especially relative too, is like you need to get to know the other agents who you're across the table with. If they have some kind of personal connection with you, you've got to connect with them on Real Trade, you've met with them in person. You'd be surprised of what information they're willing to give you now that they know you, that you can then help your clients make a better offer or help your seller get a better price. I mean, it really is incredible once you have that personal relationship with agents too.
And I think that
other people. You need to know inspectors, pest control people, roofers, mortgage folks, title folks, attorneys, accountants. My goodness, the more you can, somebody's moving from out of town. If you're that person, when you need somebody, you call me, I got a guy. Right? I know a lady that does that perfect. If you can be that connector, it's huge. I'm sorry, Jim, you were saying something.
Well, I was also thinking, like, there's a couple of realtors I know in the business, and it's a small ecosystem that we circulate in, and everybody knows they have a reputation, good, bad, or indifferent. They have a reputation. I think Real Trade is a real opportunity to establish your reputation. Obviously, we want to be known as tough negotiators, great for our clients, always have our clients first. But if you're entering the room with somebody that has that reputation, it makes you know that you're in for a, you know, you're in for a good game. You're not walking into the room with milquetoast. And I think that Real Trade gives you the opportunity to establish that game because the community is small.
Yep.
Sure. For sure.
I know some agents that I have a tough time negotiating with on behalf of my client. I know what I'm in for ahead of time.
Yep. Well, we're a little over on time. However, because there aren't a lot of people in the audience and it is being recorded, if you guys want to ask me questions, I'll stay. I can stay till noon. So we got a whole other hour of questions. Or
either way. I got a question.
Hit me.
I'm a real estate agent here in Miami, and been doing it for 20 years. And something that I noticed that I do now that we've been going through this conversation, it's like handling the expectations. Like, for example, if I have a listing and they want 20,000 price reduction because of inspections or something, And so I would go back to the seller and give him the number, and then through the negotiation, I would like tell the buyer that my seller is willing to just drop it $5,000, for example, and I already know that he's willing to do 10, you know. So I would play it like that, and usually it works out fine, because I like the expectation for my seller is to drop 10,000, and then we'll end up at 7. So
And that's
I
the
don't know if
typical game, right? You start high, they
yeah.
start low, we meet in the middle. And since everybody knows that game, right? We've all used it, it's all been used against us. I've got to have other tactics to work in. And one of the ones I use as a preemptive strike, we call it the upfront contract, is I try to align expectations on the way in. Hey, thanks a lot for inviting me to the table. With any luck, we can figure this out. You tell me what you're looking for. I'm trying to get them to go first, right? So that I can do the flinch on them. You tell me what you're looking for, I'll tell you what I got. And the idea here is the failure to align expectations and try to get them to go first. The failure to do that means one party or the other is going to be disappointed. Premeditated, unmet expectations is the definition of disappointing. Now, the way I was raised, my mom used that word against me. Like, I'm not mad at you for not getting the price. I'm just disappointed, right? You don't want your client to be disappointed that you didn't get the most that you could, right? Maybe you could have settled at 7 instead of 5 because they thought you could go down 5 and it was 10, whatever it is. Maybe you could have got all 10. Maybe you could have held the line if you struggled on purpose, if you had flinched appropriately.
Yeah.
Maybe they would have thought, wow, there's no wiggle room on them. They really are firm. And you could have got that little, and by the way, if you call the ball with your client and you say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. If you're privy to the negotiation, here's the tactic I'm going to use. That's going to inspire confidence. Wow, this gentleman has done this before.
He's prepared. Yeah.
He's prepared.
Yeah.
Look how much he's thinking about this. Here's what I'm going to do.
Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I do that depending on the person, You have to like, because not everybody is gonna go with it,
Yep.
But you're right.
I'm going to look up that other real estate agent, and I'm going to see how many houses he sold in the last year. And I'm going to figure out, am I negotiating against somebody who's good or desperate? I'm not going to lose to a lady that sells 1 or 2 a year because her husband told her to get a real estate license. I'm not going to lose to her.
They're on Real Trade. You can find that out real quick too, right on the pro.
Yeah.
So getting back to your original question, the difference between sales and market and the sales and negotiation, was that the first question?
Yes, it was. Sales is price is firm. Negotiation is now I'm going to have to make a concession. You need to know how low your client's willing to go, right? And if their head's going to explode when they get there.
So I feel like sales is getting them to the door, but negotiation is to get them to walk through the door you want them to walk through. Sales is getting them in the room, right? But you want them to walk through the door. Negotiation is getting them to walk through the door you want them to walk through.
There you go. And there's different. Sometimes people confuse like sales and marketing, right? Marketing
that's
is completely different than selling. And same thing, like when you go to a movie theater, the price is not negotiable. There are some places where the price is not negotiable, but there are a lot of places where the price is negotiable and people just don't realize it. I literally ask for a military discount everywhere I go or a good guy discount. Almost everything is negotiable. Getting your roof redone, it's negotiable. You're getting you're getting your driveway pressure washed, offer them cash instead of a credit card. See if it's negotiable now, right? Everything is negotiable.
100%.
I mean, of all the things we've talked about, I think there's so much value in this discussion. I mean, I can see some things I'd like to do for some agents that I work intimately with this topic, for sure.
It's a fun topic, and it's really fun when you start engaging. Just to give you a preview, if you decided you wanted to take the course with us, We start off with a negotiation because everybody says, win-win is what we're looking for. And then I will pit you against somebody else in a mock negotiation that I've totally baked. And let's say I've administered it 250 times. There are only about 5 people that have beat the system in the negotiation. Ooh, so there's the, and you won't be able to read it in the books. You won't be able to cheat.
Right.
That's great, Tim. Wow. What a great webinar. This has been one of our
My head's
best.
spinning.
I know it is. And it's just so relevant with real estate. There's just so many different avenues as agents, as we're negotiating, like I said, for ourselves, for our clients, so many different things. And you dropped some really good nuggets with this one, Tim.
I love that concept when they say something about price and you turn the dialogue around and say, why do you think that is? You know, oh, these guys are 5% agents. And you turn the dial, but I'd love to know, now I need to know the follow-up to the conversation when you initially turn it around.
And by the way, we can do more of those. If you all invite me back, you give me a specific title or a specific topic, like let's just handle one of those 12 tactics.
Right.
How are you going to use it? How are you going to use it if it's used against you? Or here's my 5 most common objections. Tim, how would you handle each one of those? And by the way, if you go to my LinkedIn posts, I handled the price objection 10 different ways. So 10 weeks in a row, I posted a different video on how to handle the objection if they say your competition is cheaper.
I would love to do a whole session on, you go to the listing appointment and they say, hey, we only want to pay 2%, or, you know, your competition is offering 2, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
Just that one discussion, like question and answer, role playing, gaming out that one scenario. How do you not get beat in the listing appointment on your commission?
I know.
I love the listing appointment thing. Once I put my house for sale by owner. So I started getting all these calls from realtors, and I'm a sales coach, right? So I'm thinking, oh, that one was horrible. That's horrible. Oh my gosh, that one was horrible. So I scripted, what would I say if I was going for listings? What?
I want to write that down.
Why wouldn't you, right? I mean, if that's your primary duty, you don't want to sound like everybody else. So if somebody called me and they said, hey, Tim, you probably already have a realtor or real estate agent that's handling this for you, or, you know, you're listing your home for sale by owner. So sounds like you might have been burned by somebody in the past. Hey, when your real estate agent reaches out to you with their monthly activity report, what's that generally look like? The idea is I want to make them thirsty first, because they're thinking, what are you talking about? Monthly activity report. And now they're open to change. And so your lead-in question can open their mind to being changed. Before I start talking, I want to physiologically and mentally prime them to listen. So nobody cares how long you've been in business or you went to college.
Right. Nobody cares.
They do. They do later, but nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. You got to prove you care first. You got to make it all about them. And that upfront contract aligns that expectation early.
Interesting.
And I love this topic, by the way. And Clint Babcock and I are close friends. And so if you ask me a question I don't know, I'm going to obsess on it for a week and get back to you. So let's have some fun with this.
We will talk more.
All right. Take the rest of the day off.
No time for that. We'll be doing that after we're dead.
Awesome.
Hey guys, thank you very much. Hey team, that was awesome, man. I'm gonna get your book.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
And Ryan, Jim, thanks for the invite. I got the email and I was like, let me check it out. And I think it was really interesting and a lot of value. Thank you very much.
I think there was it's our pleasure. So I think there was a real opportunity missed for people. We usually get about 12 to 20 agents logging in. Of all the sessions we've done,
I know.
this is the biggest takeaway on all your deals, right? So we talk about SB4D, that's some of your deals. We talk about creative finance, that's some of your deals. There's something here for everybody on every one of their deals, every one of their interactions. Universal.
Well, Ryan said it, this is on recording, so it'll live forever.
Yeah.
I think the idea here is maybe share this with other people. As soon as we have 6 people that are ready to go, we'll launch another session. So imagine a training session, 90 minutes a week for 6 weeks with
Yeah.
6 other professionals that you can work with that
Yeah.
are all in there trying to sharpen each other's swords, right?
Yeah. That's what I
That's
say.
the
Iron
fun.
sharpens iron. Yeah.
So have them watch the video. If they dig it, great. If they think they already know it, test them.
That's great, Tim.
What's your
What-
concession?
Yeah, I know, right? I know. What's your concession? Well, we appreciate it, Tim. This is like, as Jim just pointed out, literally our best webinar.
Yeah.
And I want to give a big shout out to Jim, for my co-host here. He has an incredible company, 2 incredible companies, or 3, not only his law firm, which I've used his awesome closing company, New Path Title, which is one of the best title agents literally in South Florida, and the great software Title Leap. When I tell agents, this is like a free contract coordinator that you get to take advantage of for free, that literally tracks the whole transaction, all the drop dead dates. So excited to be working with you, Jim, on my own real estate deals and co-hosting these webinars and bringing tremendous value to agents. And also, I was going to say, as myself, I'm the founder. I've not only been a real estate agent, active for over 20 years, founder of Real Trade, which is online marketplace and social media platform for real estate. Big value add prop for the agents. Once you create a profile, you own your listings. You can get direct buyers. We're the home of the double dip. That's huge. But the big thing is we have a social media component. Not only can you promote your listings to a network of now over 1,600 agents, you can connect with amazing vendors on the platform like Tim that are going to help you on your real estate. And a big one here, we have Jeff. Jeff's a lender on the platform. You can connect with Jeff. He can help you with your clients on the lending. We have everything from solar companies to inspectors, appraisers, you name it. So just trying to make your life easier with real estate. Sell real estate with a couple clicks and get connected, grow your network with a couple clicks.
The home of the double dip, though, that's the big value prop, right? Anybody who's ever gotten both sides of a commission, they appreciate that for sure. That resonates loud. And don't go broke creating your brand,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Zillow fleece the agents to the, it's like going to Disney, right? As long as you have a pulse, they're going to continue taking money out of your pocket. Zillow, without naming brands, I shouldn't have done that, but I love Real Trade. And don't forget, yeah, I hope so. And don't forget about title advance. You guys are, whether you're buying side or selling side, order your title advances, know what the title looks like before you get into the deal. Everybody that we've been providing them to, they come back, they always tell us it was invaluable at the end. Whether you're just winning the listing because you're showing up as the most prepared agent, those title advances will be the lifeblood of your practice at some point soon.
Yes, title advance is a huge feature. There's no surprises anymore when you go to a listing appointment where you take a listing, or even if you're representing a buyer, if there's any issues on the house. Nice thing too, you can order title advances right through Real Trade as well.
Yeah. And if you're on the buy side of the transaction, throw New Path Title on in paragraph 20. Let the seller pay for it, but call out the name of the title company right off the bat, and now you control title.
Love it.
All right, you guys. It was a
pleasure.
Thanks,
guys.
Tim, we'll be in touch.
Thank you, guys. Take it easy.
Have
a great day.
All right. Bye.